Hello and welcome everyone to a second Kyte Perspective session around home care and hospital and home solutions. Today's topic is all about automated rostering, considering staff and patient preferences, dealing with ad hoc changes, and making sure the data for organizations is always at sync. Today's guest speaker is Alf Martin. Alf is a senior solution architect and field services specialist with Kyte Consulting. But Alf, I hand over to you for a short introduction.
Thanks, Anita. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Alf Martin here, and I've been in the Oracle space for well over 25 years, and been also architecting the hospital to home care solution, both with Oracle as well as with Kyte. So really excited to showcase some of the excellent features that we have in the solution.
Thank you, Alf. Really appreciate it. And myself, Anita Pera, CEO and founder of Kyte Consulting. As Kyte, we're an Oracle-centric consultancy where we focus on customer and employee and supply experiences. And today, the topic I want to drill into a little bit more further is that whole, home care providers, whether it's hospitals, aged care providers, NDIS providers, anyone who has to do home runs and home visits, and how organizations are dealing with those complexities. And I just want to kick this off a little bit with a bit of scene setting. So let's imagine you have an organization, let's say, with 100 patients at home, whether it's palliative care or aged care people, or people who are just recovering from a surgery or whatnot. And in order to deal with this 100 patients at home, let's assume you need medical staff or carers or physicians, let's say about 30, 35, maybe 40 people on the other side with their vehicles, with their medical kits, and the daily plan on the phone, right? When they wake up in the morning, they want to know where they need to go and which 5 patients they need to visit in a specific day. That doesn't sound too complex. That's what I thought anyway at the beginning. But let's add a bit of more complexity to this. So let's assume now, right, out of your 100 patients, some patients need to get their medical appointment. They need to have a specific time frame for the medical appointment because they need to get some infusion, or they're taking some time-critical drugs, or it can't just be at any point in time of the day because it needs to be at a set time every day, right? So there's that group of people. And then let's assume some patients may have some big scary dogs at home, and you may have employees who are really scared of dogs. Or let's assume you have patients who only want to see a specific nurse or a specific carer because that's their preferred carer, or they don't want to see a male carer, right? Or someone loves their sleep-ins and only wants to have appointments in the afternoon. Or someone gets really unwell and rocks up at the hospital, right? Because they felt like they need immediate care and didn't want to wait for the carer. So there's a whole bunch of those complexities. And then on the other side, as an organization, you also got to deal with your employees and your nurses and clinicians, right? You may have people who go unwell during the day and can't continue with their shift, or you have people who equally have preferences and want to work only on specific days or prefer certain shifts or have certain skill sets, which you then need to marry up with your patients. So suddenly you can see 100 patients, which initially doesn't seem to be much of a big deal. There's a lot of complexities involved in actually managing this efficiently, effectively, but also with minimal risk for the actual patient and employees involved. And today's session, so I actually want to hand over now to Alf. So today's session is really to drill into that storyline a little bit and get a bit of an idea around the Kyte Hospital and the Home solution, what we've pre-built based on Oracle leading Fusion cloud applications, of how the technology is actually helping organizations deal with those complexities, use AI to optimize rounds, optimize care plans, and really drive optimized experience for employees and for their patients alike. So Alf, I hand over to you because I'm sure you'd like to show us a few things.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anita. Hi, everyone. Just as Anita set the scene, sort of rostering the patients and matching them with the right clinician so that the right clinician is sent to the right person at the right time. It's not as easy as it sounds. And we talking to the various clinical healthcare providers, we see there's a heavy manual effort that goes in. There are organizations where full-time people sit and do this using Excel spreadsheets or sort of non-digital ways. The Kyte solution, which is underpinned by Oracle's Fusion platform, and it takes all that complexity out of your day-to-day operations. And as Anita mentioned, uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to do all the heavy lifting in terms of rostering, scheduling, who goes where, what sort of patient preferences, what are the staff preferences we need to cater for. Let me explain all that in the context of, let's say, a use case, right? So this the screen that you see on the left-hand side is basically your bucket-based view or an administrator view or a dispatcher view or a coordinator view. And the view that you see on the right-hand side is the clinician view. I've just basically logged into my Samsung device, and there's a native Android app that I've logged in for the hospital home care solution. We got both Android as well as iOS apps, and this is how the clinicians they go about picking their daily clinical visits. Now, if we focus on the screen on the left, you can see here a hospital typically will have a number of services that they might send out clinicians, right? So in this case, as an example, you've got a hospital home care service. You could have chemo in the home, post-acute care, rehab, palliative care. Now, if we focus on the hospital in the home care solution, now that particular service could have, a couple of doctors. If you can just focus on my mouse pointer, a couple of doctors, a couple of nurses, a couple of occupational therapists, being sent out to visit their patients at their preferred, the patient's preferred place of visit. We could even also use the system to roster vehicles, right? So you might have a fleet, fleets or ambulances, or even you might have on a sustainability basis electric vehicles that you want to sort of use for shorter distances and things like that. So all that can be automatically handled by the system. Now you might be wondering. Sorry,
go ahead. So I'm just asking the question around, can the system deal with those complexities like setting staff preferences?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is where the power of the system comes into picture. So without leaving the screen, you can just basically click on any resource that you're talking about. So let's say Jamie Barnes, who's a nurse, and that particular nurse has got those work skills. So everything is predicated by a work skill or the sort of capabilities that they carry, and also we can even drill down to the competency levels of those work skills. So Jamie Barnes, has got a nursing skill. He also works in the mornings. He's also a male nurse. So let's say a patient has got a preference for a male nurse to come and visit them, right? The system will automatically take into account Jamie's nursing skills, his competency levels, and the fact that he works in the mornings, and automatically allocate those clinical visits to Jamie.
Excellent.
And just the other important point in terms of staff preferences, just staying on the theme, is also the staff might be willing to work in a certain geography. Let's say I want to work in South Melbourne, or you might have various geographical areas where a certain team focuses only in the sort of the northern region, certain teams focus only on the southern region. All that sort of, if you like, geofencing can be done using the concept of work zones as well. So system is really configurable and capable to implement any regime that you might have in your operational needs.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's assume I'm the nurse, right? And every morning at 6:30 I wake up, I have my coffee, I'll check what the roster is for the day. So I say, okay, today I'm rostered to have 5 site visits. But before I go out on the site visits, I actually need to go, let's say, to the hospital to pick up my car, but also pick up the medical kit. So the kit, which has all the medical equipment in there, which I need to do my home care visits effectively. Can the system automatically create a checklist for me to make sure I know what I need to take for my 5 site visits?
100%. So we can configure the system, as you can see in the screen now, where at the start of every morning, they automatically are the first activity they need to do is to go to the nearest depot or the nearest warehouse or the nearest hospital, wherever the medical supply.
Oops, I think we just
Calendar.
lost out.
Which is automatically in people's calendars, and we can even add things like lunch breaks as well, or team meetings and things like that. And if you see for Dr. Mark Spencer, you can see he's picking up only at 12 o'clock because he doesn't work morning shift, he works in the afternoon shifts. All those staff working patterns, shift patterns is already built into the system and completely configurable. So when the appointments needs to be rostered, all these parameters or factors are taken into account.
Yeah, excellent. So then I'm assuming not only I get that, I guess, checklist of what I need to bring, but that could be automatically sent to the hospital pharmacy. The hospital pharmacy in the morning gets all the home care kits together, and the clinicians which come on site, pick up their van, swoosh past the pharmacy, get their kit, right, and any other preferences they may want to bring along with them, and then hit the day. So then I'm assuming, okay, well, the system automatically matched the home visits based on my preferences and based on my abilities with the right patients. Yeah, so I'm hitting the road. Can we see very quickly how the system does the automatically matchmaking between visits
100%,
and patients?
yeah. 100%. I like the word matchmaking. and it's certainly matchmaking in heaven, purely because the system will take out all that heavy lifting that you are currently doing. In a lot of these criteria resides in people's heads, and there's quite a amount of effort that goes in. So without leaving the screen, okay, the system is really intuitive and really easy to follow, right? So what you see on the screen is just a basic time view, right? It gives you, in a sort of a digital whiteboard fashion, all the appointments that these particular clinicians will be doing. However, you can also split the screen into the top screen. You can have a time view, and in the bottom view, you can have a list view, and it basically shows all the appointments that we need to sort of work or a schedule for today or a week into the future as well, right? So you can run this solution for how many number of days that you are willing to roster ahead in time. Now, without leaving this particular screen, what you do is, again, you can see on the bottom of the screen there is about 64 clinical visits that needs to be rostered, right? You can see here, there is an IV antibiotics push that needs to happen. There's an anticoagulation therapy, a fasting glucose check, and capillary blood glucose checks. All these medical appointments needs to be rostered, right? Again, as I mentioned earlier, you can run this thing just for a day, just for 7 days into the future, up to 99 days into the future. You can basically roster, and the system will continuously optimize. Now, how do we do the matchmaking, as it were? So in terms of that, you just basically click on what is called as routing plans, and you click on some of the routing plans that we have configured, right? So again, the routing plans can be really specialist, or it can be really broad brush. In our case, it's really a broad brush. It just basically takes these appointments, 64 appointments, and allocates to those nurses or occupational therapists or doctors, depending on the work skill that's needed. We can also configure these routing plans for specialist appointments, such as emergency or really urgent critical care. And all those things is possible to be configured as well. Okay, so if I click start, and what it does is that system basically runs in the background, trying to match those 6 clinicians against those 64 clinical visits, and within a matter of 2 seconds, really, which is fantastic efficiency gains. And it's allocated 64 appointments across 2 different, clinical made those 64 appointments to be nurse-related appointments rather than occupational therapy or nurse. But we can utilize the other resources as well, depending on the kind of clinical visits that we have. And we also get to see some really useful metrics, right? What is the average working time? What is the average, not overtime? Thankfully, there is no overtime because it was able to squeeze all these appointments without incurring any overtime. What is the sort of average travel time? And because the system is constantly learning, again, just to reiterate Anita's earlier point, the system is underpinned by Oracle's artificial intelligence and machine learning. The system is constantly learning by what is happening in the field, and it's working out, okay, for this transfusion or IV appointment, is Jamie Barnes the better suited resource, or should we go ahead with Emily, who's another nurse? She might be more competent, more close to the patient, works works the right sort of shift patterns and things like that. So it does all that thing, and the system is constantly learning, and it all needs is just a few days worth of data to sort of generate that profile, resource-based profile, and uses that constant learning it does to optimize when it does the rostering.
So it actually uses historical data to optimize the route plans and the scheduling for the future. Yeah. So it's like, if someone takes always 10 minutes extra at a specific patient, it kind of plans that extra time in the future or vice versa.
100%, yes.
Yeah,
okay,
amazing.
So let's
super. Yeah.
Let's quickly showcase how it looks. So now that we have run the routing, how does it look in the actual So you can see here all those appointments that this routing run did, all the 64 appointments. We can see here that has been allocated between Jamie Barnes, who's a nurse, and also Linda Cohen, who's another nurse. Again, because all these appointments were, sort of nurse-related appointments, we can see here them being sort of allocated to tomorrow and henceforth, right? So we can see those 64 appointments already plotted on people's calendars.
And then I'm also assuming the system automatically allocates them in an order where the travel plan and the actual route is optimized and minimizes the time on the road.
100%. So the system comes with what is called as real-time routing engine, where it's constantly getting those real-time traffic updates from Google Maps, which is a standard maps that you get out of the box with the solution. And each and every time, let's say an accident happens on M1 or any other road, it automatically sort of takes that into account, and it also optimizes continually. So let's say in this case, there's this appointment which is showing in a different color, which is basically says SLA window can be lost. So basically it's saying, okay, whatever commitment that we made to the patient that we will be seeing them between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, it might be lost because either the clinician is running late, or there's a traffic incident, or something emergency has happened. So all those real-time anomalies or real-time emergency situations that's happening actually in the field is visible in real time for you back at base.
Yeah, interesting. That is super, super interesting. And what about patient comms? Making sure patients, let's assume there's a major traffic jam and the clinician is stuck there for an hour and will arrive an hour later. Is there an automated way where we can also update patients as well around estimated time of arrival of their clinician?
100%. Yeah, let's stay with Linda, and you can see here Linda is probably going to be a bit late on this appointment. And what it happens is, what means is that might mean this particular appointment, which is basically capillary fasting blood glucose level, which needs to happen in the morning, and that's why we have pinned the task. So we have said, okay, this task needs to happen at such and such time. If that is the case, the clinician can, within their mobile device from here, can reach out to the patient just by a few clicks and send a message to the patient, either through an email get be sent, or we can even send them a URL, which basically gives them how far the clinician is from in the patient's house or the location. So just like your Pizza Hut sort of a delivery or Uber, it gives you a visual indication to the patient of course, we can approximate. So if you're concerned about, staff, privacy and things, so that we can approximate their location so that they can be, not only ready, so that they might be running late, but they also know in real time how far ahead or how far they are, so that they can be ready when that particular appointment comes into play.
Excellent. This is really, really awesome. And so then let's play through a couple of more scenarios. So in the interest set, there's also certain appointments which need to be pinned for a specific time frame, because let's assume I'm a chemo patient, so I need to have my medication at a specific time slot at a specific time, and I'm not very flexible to move this around. So how does the system deal with locking things in for those specific time frames?
Perfect. Okay, so that's a nice segue into the activity pinning concept that we talked about. So we can, even though the system is doing all the heavy lifting for you and automatically populating the roster, however, if you want to, let's say this particular appointment needs to done only by Linda because she's a lot more experienced, or it needs to happen in such and such time, we can lock down a certain clinical visit, or what we call as pin that clinical visit to a certain time frame, so that it's always there, right? So that when the routing is run, this particular appointment which you have pinned at a certain time and a date and time is not touched by the automated routing. Now, however, let's say something really, let's say Linda is really unwell, and we need to move that appointment, the capital fasting appointment, to Jamie. So what you do in that sort of eventualities, you can obviously drag and drop. So even the system is populated all these appointments for you, you can drag and drop these appointments to some other resource, and then the system basically gives you, yes, you are trying to drag and drop to Jamie, but Jamie really does not have that relevant work skills for this particular capillary fasting glucose check or capillary blood check that is needed. So it also gives you a visual warning by changing the color, and it also suggests you who's best suited for this appointment, right? It gives you sort of a golden ribbon kind of a suggestion. Obviously, you can override, and you can also say, I know Jamie can do this, and you can override, and it basically goes to Jamie. So you can manually override what the system has done for you, and it also changes colors to say that that's not quite right because he's probably not quite competent with this particular medical appointment need.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And talking about competency and the concept also of a trainee. So let's assume you want to buddy up a more senior clinician or nurse with a trainee nurse, and you want to pair them up as a team. Is this something the system can cater for as well?
100%. Let's so we have the concept called as team working or crew working. So let's say you want to, let's say Linda Cohen is a nurse consultant, a senior nurse consultant, and she needs to sort of shadow, let's say, Dr. Gabriela D'Souza. So what you can do is you can just basically buddy them up or create them into a team, and all you need to do is you just drag and drop Linda to Gabriela, and the system basically gives you the option to make that sort of the team formation either at a certain duration. Let's say you want them to be shadowing only for 4 hours today or for the next 2 weeks. So it's really easier to create that sort of the buddy or the team concept by just dragging and dropping.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really good. And then one other question I have is also with, having back in the hospital or at the aged care facility, let's assume when a patient gets dramatically unwell and they're not waiting for their clinician to rock up at home, but a family member actually puts them in a car, drives into the hospital, puts them in the emergency room and says, my father or mother or family member is acutely unwell, please deal with them straight away. How does the system transfer the data back to a hospital EMR system, for example, right? Like, is this real-time sync, or is there all data synced, or only specific data sync? How does this work practically, and how can we ensure that a hospital always has the latest data at any point in time?
Absolutely. So the system itself is hosted in the cloud, which means that all the data that is happening or captured in the field. Let's say Jamie Barnes is looking at the VAC therapy, and he just goes ahead and does this clinical visit following these workflow steps that you can see on the mobile device. And at the end of, again, we can bring in data from your EMR system, or from your pathology system, or from your imaging system. So all those blood results, previous images, everything can be fed from your EMR system or from your PAS, patient administration system, so that it's there on the fingertips for the clinician. And what happens is, when the clinical visit in the field is happen, system not only syncs back to the base in real time, we can, through integration to your EMR, it gets synced back to the hospital system EMR. So if you got an Oracle EMR, then it follows the HL7 and FHIR protocols, and all the information that is captured in the field is readily available in your EMR. Or if it's a non-Oracle EMR, we can integrate with any non-Oracle EMR as well through open standards.
So you said cloud, which makes me really concerned, because we know Australia is a very fast country, and there are regions which may have patchy internet connections. So are you saying that if this is a cloud-based tool and someone is out in the field, visiting remote patients, and they're out of internet, that the system is not going to work?
Yep. No, the system will absolutely work, because system is fully offline capable. And what happens is, each and every morning, when these clinical visits are pushed out to people's rosters and calendars, every morning when they log in, when the clinician logs into their mobile device like this, all the clinical visits, along with the attachments and data pertaining to these clinical visits that you see here, is all downloaded to their mobile device. So even if they go out into a regional area where the system might be offline, they can still go about doing their clinical visits. And when they come to a place where there is a signal, it automatically gets synced back in real time, so that there is absolutely no data that's getting lost due to signal issues.
Amazing. So fully capable in offline, and syncs as soon as it's back within internet reach. That is fantastic. I realize time's been flying. What an interesting conversation, Alf. We only have 1 minute left. If there's anyone from the audience who has an audience question, please pop them in the LinkedIn comments field now, or even if you're watching the recording after the fact, you still can add your comments into the comment sections, or just send us an email in private to our Kyte email addresses, or reach out on LinkedIn. We're here to answer any questions. But I think this was a really great session. Thank you so much, Alf.
No problem at all. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Next Wednesday, we drill into another hospital or home care topic, where we talk about Customer 360, and we show a little bit more that app you see here on the right. So what actually clinicians and nurses experience on their mobile device when they're out in the field, making sure they have the data they need and when they need it, and also be able to automatically create clinician notes, and images, and fill out the forms, and it automatically gets sucked back into the organization's key data platforms. But that's a topic for next Wednesday. With that, I think the half an hour is up, and I want to say thank you, Alf, so much for the insights and the great demo and the discussion. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.